Thank you all for joining us today on Your Elevated Space, where we talk all about how to transform our lives in the areas of money, relationships, and overall well-being. Over the course of 21 days, my guests and I are here to show you how you can gain happiness and clarity through intentional art and design. And today I am so excited to introduce you all to Amy J., who is the author of The Blessed Home. And today she's here to talk all about how our words can actually heal our homes. Amy, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here.
I'm so excited to have you. So just to get started, can you tell us a little bit about your experience and really just how it led you to write your book?
Sure. So I always tell people I went to the School of Life experience. I didn't realize it, but I have been researching this book for probably 25 years, just through living my life. And so I start off usually by telling people I am a mom of 5, and I was an amazing mother until I had kids. And then it really began a journey of just, I felt so lost, so incredibly lost immediately. I was like, what happened to me? And so I started right away just beginning to try to understand myself, understand what was going on in my life, in my kids. And so a lot of what is in this book has come out of my journey as a mom and learning how to create a healing home for my family. But I'm also an innkeeper. So I run a bed and breakfast. We've been doing it almost 12 and a half years now, up in the Adirondack Mountains of New York. And so we host guests from all over the world that come to stay here and hike and sightsee. And so the other part of my experience has been that actually my job is making people feel at home, especially away from home. And so I didn't want our inn to just be like any other place where you get a nice bed and a hot breakfast. I wanted it to really be an experience where people would be able to relax and reconnect with themselves, with their loved ones, and to leave feeling really refreshed. And so every detail of our inn has been designed with that in mind, and really trying to just fill the atmosphere with all the peace and calm and love that they need, because they're stepping out of their hectic lives, to come here and get away for a few days. And so our mission, if you will, is to make them just be healed while they're here. So that has also been part of my journey. And then I have been a writer most of my life, ever since I had my first article about my cat published when I was in first grade. I was published in the school newspaper, and got the bug. So over the years, I've just done a lot of different things, blogging, writing for children's publications, and so forth. And then really going into a period of probably about 10 to 15 years where I put that on the back burner because I was so immersed in raising my kids and trying to survive all of that, that I didn't really have time to pursue that passion of mine. And so the book itself came about, ironically, through a phone call with my daughter. She lives in California, and she was moving into a new apartment and very stressed. She had a toddler. She was 8 months pregnant, and just everything, hormones and stress and everything. And we were talking, and right in the middle of the phone call, she said, "Do you know how to do a home blessing?" And I mean, it really caught me off guard because it's not the sort of thing we normally would talk about. And so I said, well, yeah, I think I do. I've been to a few, I think I can jot some ideas down for you. So we hung up, and I sat down to shoot her a quick little email. Thought it would take about 10 minutes. And 3 years later, the email that became a book. And it was really cool because as I kept, as I started writing, I kept thinking of more things. And I'm like, well, she should know this, because if I just tell her to do this and she doesn't understand the context, and it just kept growing and growing until, it had gotten to the point I had to break it into sections and start giving the sections headings. And I'm like, this thing is wanting to be a book. And I remember just sitting there this one day going, what am I doing? And it was really almost like I felt like the art of blessing itself was kind of waving at me, going, hey, I've got your attention. And this is a message I really want people to hear. I want people to be reminded and welcome blessing back into their daily lives. It really used to be woven throughout the fabric of every day in ancient civilizations, and we've just gotten so far away from it that we don't even know what it means or how to do it anymore. And so the book took on a whole different message and different depth of message than what I originally thought it would, but that's kind of how it came to be.
Wow. So the overall message of the book is really to kind of get us back to our roots and, take time to bless our homes. Is that essentially correct?
Yeah. It's kind of like taking care of the unseen part of your home. We can find, a tutorial for everything. If you want to, paint a wall, or you want to build a backyard barbecue pit, or anything you want to do, you can Google it and find, a couple million websites that'll tell you how to do it. But when you think about the inside part of your home, like the spirit within the walls of your home, there's not a lot out there. And, just the same as, like, I'm more than my skin and my bones. Inside me, there's a whole world that goes on. I've got thoughts, I've got ideas, emotions, personality, motivations, all these things that you can't see them. Like, I could not, take a picture of my personality and send it to you, but it's very real. And so our homes are more than just the walls, the windows and the wood and the brick. And, within the home, there is this whole unseen world as well. And while we may not be able to take a tangible picture of it, we've all experienced it. Like, you can walk into a room and nobody says a word, and you can tell, like, there's tension. Something's off, Or other times you'll walk into a space and you feel suddenly like, oh, I can let go and I can relax here. And it's because you are tuning into the atmosphere and the energy that's in that space. And so I think the primary message of my book is just, it's time for us to start doing, caring for all of our home, not just painting the walls and hanging pictures, but we've got to learn to clean it. We've got to learn to maintain it and to decorate the inner world as well.
I love that. Of course, I've done a lot of research on you, and you and I have spoke already before this. And you've mentioned, that our complicated inner messages are really keeping us from feeling, at peace and at ease in our own home. So what would you say are the most common messages that come up for people that maybe we just don't even realize?
Yeah, I think, one of the things that I realized as I was creating my own home, I just figured I would know how to do it. It would be easy. Home is such a basic human thing. We all have one. We all grew up in one. But we really do, most of us have a pretty complicated relationship with the whole idea of home. And that can be for so many reasons. In my own case, I was an adopted child. And so I always had this little I loved my family, I loved my home, but I always had this kind of sense of loss, sense of maybe not quite fitting. Um, there are kids, millions of kids that go through the foster care system and move from home to home to home, with disruptions. Um, Military families that move every 2 to 3 years, they're doing a great service, but a lot of times kids who've grown up in that way struggle to feel that they've got a home base, a place to put down roots. Um, and then even emotionally, like you can have parents that are present and good people, but there can be, emotional distance, there could be mental health issues, there could be, situations where a kid has to kind of take care of the parent, if the parent has addictions or things that are, an issue that the kid has to grow up too quickly. So all of these are really, really common things. And we grow up in this environment, and then suddenly, voila, we're an adult and we're in a home of our own, and we're trying to figure it out. And um, we're really ill-equipped. I always say, like, we come out of high school with our little home ec class, and we learned how to bake cupcakes and balance a checkbook, and that's about it, and so I think there's just some real basic things that we miss in our home experience. And the way that translates is we develop a way of seeing life and inner messages that just replay over and over and over in our heads. I'm not good at this, or nobody ever helps me. I'm on my own. I have to figure it out. I can't trust anybody. All of these inner messages that we think they're just affecting us, but they become the grid work that we build our home and our lives on, and that becomes the environment we raise our own kids in. So for me personally, my inner messages were very focused around sadness and grief. I was a very easily saddened child. I would cry a lot over almost nothing, and yet I just always felt this heaviness in my being. And so as a mom, I felt that a lot, and I felt just really a lot of loss of being able to do the way I wanted. My life wasn't turning out the way I wanted, and so those old messages of you aren't worth that, you aren't worth having a happy home, or things like everything good never works out for me, it doesn't stay, so I'm not going to get too attached to it. Just all these little things. And so I think that when we are living in that kind of a state, we don't realize how much it affects the atmosphere of the home and our interactions with other people. So I think the whole point of blessing is every time you speak a blessing, you're kind of rewriting, you're overwriting those old messages, and you're beginning to lay down a tiny, tiny little neural pathway. For me, joy was one of the ones I chose to focus on because I was always sad. So, even if I had to do it 100 times a day, I would choose joy. I would choose joy. I literally made choose joy my password on everything for like 5 years, because all day long, every time I logged into anything, choose joy, because I had to reprogram. And I think that's the power of our words. We can choose. And the home we grew up in, the environment we grew up in, doesn't have to define us as an adult. I use the example, when I first got married, we had all hand-me-down furniture, and it was ugly. I mean, it was ugly. Old green flowered couch and these gold curtains, and everything was just, but we had no money. So we took what we could get from grandma and whoever and pieced it together. But as we grew up and, were able to afford it, we began to get rid of those old pieces and put in what we wanted. And I think we come into our adult life a lot of times bringing a lot of hand-me-downs, of values, of beliefs, of patterns, of coping mechanisms, that we've seen modeled by the primary people in our lives. And it's just kind of, we just fall into that. And I think it's easy to just keep sitting on that old emotional couch. But it's important to realize you now have the power to choose the environment that your home is. You can now set the tone, set the atmosphere, clear the atmosphere, and put in what you want. So my book actually has two main sections, and one is all about cleansing the unseen space, all the different kinds of dirt that can get in there. And then the other part, of course, is blessing, which I liken that to the decorating part. That's fun. You get to pick what you want, and you get to invite it into your home.
So I'm curious, we were talking a little bit about, the hand-me-downs of, furniture pieces. So is this more or less more on, the subconscious message side, or do you find that, let's say a piece that you have in your home now came from a toxic environment? Like, will that hold on to that energy, or?
I think it could. If we've all heard, I think, of Marie Kondo and the spark joy. If something isn't sparking joy for you, if every time you see it, you feel that little twinge, it's probably something to let go of. I believe that energy continues to resonate until something changes it. It's like a ripple. Like if you throw a rock into a pond, the ripples will not stop until they hit something that stops them. And so, if you have a strong energy in your home of, anger or of loneliness or depression or whatever, and if there are certain pieces of furniture that, or vases or whatever you have that somehow are tied to that, I think you either would need to bless them and kind of try to clear that out, or maybe replace them with something that has a happier vibe to it.
I'm always curious, we actually move quite frequently. My husband and I have been together for almost 8 years. We've moved at least 10 times, 3 times across the country.
Wow.
We've been busy. But, when you move into a new home, I always wonder, are you absorbing the energy of the last people who lived there or the original people who lived there? Like, how far does it go? And is it important when you're moving into a new space to bless it and kind of start it off from scratch?
Yes. I use the example, if you moved into a house and your former owners left a bunch of trash and some broken down furniture and old food in the fridge, you wouldn't move in and just plop your stuff down right on top of that and start living. And yet that's what we do energetically all the time. And we just go into a place and start living our lives, and we don't realize we literally could be living amongst a lot of residue. And a funny story, when we moved into this house, which is our bed and breakfast, we began to have the worst family arguments. Knockdown, drag out. Nobody would give in. And it was crazy because we're not like that. My husband and I are pretty chill. We hardly ever argue. And we didn't have a history of that with our kids. And yet it was very noticeable. And we were just always bickering and fighting, and nobody would give in. And so after we were here, I don't know, a year or so, and I began to learn about the house and learn about some of the former owners. There was a woman who lived in this house for 50 to 60 years. She was very well known in town, and she was known for being an incredibly strong-willed woman. And she never gave up. She, whatever she wanted, she got, to the point that when they were putting in Highway 73 right past our house, the original plans showed for the highway to come right off of the porch of the house. And she fought that through all the way through New York State, you know, basically up to the Supreme Court, and got a curve put in that goes around our house. So this woman, you know, that energy had been in this home for 50 years, and we moved in completely unsuspectingly, and we're suddenly all very determined to get our way. So yes, I think there's a lot of history. You know, houses, you know, we always say if the walls could talk, and I do believe they do, which is one of the reasons you need to pay attention. Like when you move into a space, do you suddenly feel more anxious, you know, or do you feel, are you having more trouble sleeping, or, you know, do you notice that you're more melancholy or depressed? You know, there can be energies you're tuning into that aren't even yours, but are still just vibrating there from being the dominant energy for so long. However, I think it's really cool that it works the other way too, because if you moved into a house where someone was a very cheerful, loving person, they're going to leave that behind, and you could move into a space that feels really good, and things begin to look up for you. So I think it's, you know, it isn't always negative. We can also leave a legacy of really good, positive energy in a home.
I love that. So, can you talk a little bit about, I know that you mentioned the practice of, you know, learning to listen to the messages that our homes are sending us. What would you say? I mean, how do we begin to even become more aware of what's going on and what that is? Is it just a matter of just focusing on the changes in our behaviors or how we feel? Or?
Well, I think a lot of it's just becoming aware that we need to be aware. You know, we just don't think about this part of things a lot. I always say, you know, we usually will spend more time picking out the perfect shower curtain than we will thinking about the atmosphere. So I think it's just starting to pay attention and notice the things that are off or the things that bug you. In fact, I have an exercise in my book where I say, okay, list the top 10 things that bug you right now. And so it could be anything. It could be that your partner doesn't help out enough, or your family forgot your birthday, or your credit cards are maxed, or whatever the things are that are the little needles in your side right now. Make that list, but then realize that those aren't the real things. Those are the things that we focus on to keep from having to deal with the deeper things. And so we find ourselves, we've got a million ways to avoid. We all do it. Like, let's say you're having trouble with your mother-in-law and you don't really feel like seeing her for the holidays. So you're just like, let's book a cruise this Christmas. We won't even go to the families this year. We find all these ways to avoid what's uncomfortable. That's why we get our hair and our nails done, but we don't go get our mammogram. It's just the same kind of thing. So with our homes, I think we found ways to keep ourselves really busy. We've got so many little ways of numbing out, whether it's online shopping or, Netflix marathon, or just keeping the calendar packed. And honestly, I think one of the biggest adjustments with the whole coronavirus thing and forcing us all to stay home is a lot of people are having to take a look at what their home is like. And some of them are really struggling. And I think it's important to realize all the stuff that's coming up is stuff that has wanted to be listened to. And you've been too busy. You've been too, just shove it to the back. So I think, look at those things and then ask yourself, what is really going on underneath it? You might be presenting, and when I say you, I don't mean you.
Just not anything how much you know about me already. I'm just kidding.
We all do this. But you could be presenting as, or a person could be presenting as really irritable, like just, snapping at everybody and, pick up the socks off the floor and da 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 da, and it's just like this little going on. And that'll go on for weeks just because that's what comes up. But it's kind of like the check engine light in your car. When it's on, it's telling you something's wrong. The problem isn't that the light's on. The problem is what's going on under the hood. So for me, when I would get irritable and snappy at everybody, I would make myself sit down and journal and try to dig through it, what's going on. And 9 times out of 10, I was actually feeling like really sad or really lonely or just misunderstood, or, nobody really appreciates what I'm doing. And it was these, again, going back to those old life messages. And I couldn't say that to my kids, So what I would do instead is be like, you guys are driving me crazy. But what I really was feeling was, I feel so alone in this parenting thing right now. I don't know where to go. So I think the whole, listen to the messages your home is sending, because it's your best friend. Like those messages, those emotions, they are truly messengers coming, offering you a way to heal. And if you think about it, everything that bugs you is actually a portal through which blessing can come. So you can immediately take whatever that thing is that's weighing on you right now, and you can flip it around into a blessing, and it actually carries within it the seed of the healing. And so that's why I say, our words can heal our home, because the power of our words, we can use them either way. And we can keep speaking the negative, we can keep enforcing that, or we can make that conscious choice to speak what we want. And as soon as we do that, a whole cascade of, hormones and chemicals and healing things just flow down through us. And, it's not a once and done thing. You can't just, I bless myself and then say it didn't work, because it is a process. It's a reprogramming. But every single time you choose to reverse it and speak the blessing, you're laying another piece of that pathway, and you can begin to create. And I know this for myself, because I've had so much trouble with depression and sadness and grief for years. And I still will have a day here and there where I'm down, or I can start to spiral into that thought pattern again. But it is maybe once every 6 weeks now, instead of day after day after day, that I could hardly get myself out of bed. So you really can reprogram and heal it, over time, and by choosing to bring blessing into your life.
That's great. Can we go through an example? Would you mind? Is that okay?
Yeah.
So let's say, I know you just mentioned, let's say, feeling underappreciated. I feel like that's a common one, right? So let's say now we have an awareness that we're feeling, unappreciated, and we're doing so much, and we just really need help. It's kind of a cry for help. Where do we? What's the next step, I guess? How do we get through that?
Well, I think there's a couple ways you can do it. If it depends on the other people in your home. You don't want to necessarily put your healing responsibility on them. If you have a very caring partner and you can go to them and have that conversation, that's one thing. But I think in some cases you have to kind of do some of this on your own. For me, when I was really digging into this, I had teenagers. They weren't going to be cooperative participants. They thought I was a crackpot anyway, so I certainly couldn't go to them and ask for blessings. So what I would do is think about what you want to feel. What is your heart crying out for? You want to feel appreciated. You want to feel connected. You want to feel valued. And so then you begin to speak that. You just literally say, I bless myself with a sense of value, with a sense of purpose. I bless myself with the knowledge that what I do matters, even if nobody else tells me. I go into every day knowing that my work matters. And I'm going to do everything I do today as if it changes the world, because it does. And you just speak that to yourself. And if you write, if you're a journaler, write it out. Write a love note to yourself, and then read that, morning and night if you have to. At one point in my life, my one daughter was really having a hard time, and she kept saying to me, "You never do anything nice for me. You never do anything nice for me." And I was feeling like a horrible mother. It's like, she was convincing me. And so I literally started writing down every time I did something nice for her. And I kept it in a little, in my journal. And every time even if it was just I French braided her hair, or I made her favorite snack or whatever. And in just 1 week's time, I had like 300 nice things I had done for her. And so I was able to reprogram that pain, that wound in me, and say, you know what, I am doing a good job. And I don't have to have her validation. I can know that in myself. Now, I didn't call it blessing back in those days, because I wasn't really into that right then. But now, I would kind of turn that into a blessing, or like an affirmation that I would repeat to myself, several times a day if I needed to.
That makes a lot of sense. Are you doing the same thing in your inn, for example? Is this a frequent thing that you're doing in exercise, or?
You mean of blessing?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's become such a lifestyle now that it's so subconscious. I almost don't notice that I'm doing it. But some of it is just the intention with which you do things. As an innkeeper, I make thousands of beds a year, and I scrub thousands of toilets a year. Not always glamorous, but I have gotten such a part of my routine now that as I'm making that bed, I'm blessing the people who are going to come and stay. And I may not say it out loud, but it's the attitude that I'm doing it with. And a lot of times after I'm done, I'll pull all the blankets up and get the pillows straight and everything, and then I'll just kind of pat the bed and say, I hope you have a good night, or something like that, just to kind of put that out there. And it's ironic, because over and over and over, people tell us when they are here, I slept better than I have slept in years. And they'll come in the door often. They'll come in the front door of the house and literally stop and just go, oh, it feels so good in here. So I think it really, there is a good atmosphere here, just because we have, and some of it, I'm not meaning to sound like a saint. We had some horrible years. My kids, I love them to death, but they're all strong-willed. And, my children are all adopted as well, and came from a variety of different backgrounds, different traumas, different personalities. And so we rocked and rolled for a while, and it was sheer desperation that caused me to look for answers and try to find a way to create a healing environment so that we could come out of it alive. And I'm happy to say we have. The kids are all doing well. They all love me now. It's all good. And I really do believe there was a lot of healing that took place just through being intentional about the home and the atmosphere in the home.
Fantastic. So while they were growing up, they were still in the home while you started?
Yes. The two younger ones especially were here in the bed and breakfast with us, and I would do a lot of the, excuse me, a lot of the exercises in the book came out of that chapter. And just little things like not all blessings have to be spoken. I have a whole section in the book on unspoken blessings. And I really had to work on that because with teenagers, you know, you cannot walk up to a teenager and say, I bless you with peace. You know, they're gonna roll their eyes hard at that. And so I had to find ways to infuse blessing into the day, into the atmosphere. And I think of it as, you know, those infusion pitchers that you put water in and then you put the fruit in the middle section and it just seeps out into the water. So our home, you know, was the pitcher, and I was just putting in anywhere I could, you know, through using the five senses, you know, taste and smell and touch and all of those things, infusing whatever the blessing was I wanted, you know, if they needed peace or they needed joy or they needed confidence, even down to the pictures I hung on the walls, you know, of trying to just create an atmosphere. You know, our kids all came from different backgrounds, they didn't have a strong sense of family. And so I would hang pictures of us having fun as a family, just to be a subliminal message, like, hey, we do have fun now and then, you know. So I just viewed it as like those things would infuse the atmosphere, and it did. You know, it wasn't perfect, but there were a lot of times where I could switch the day, like I could make that shift just through doing a couple little things and seeing everybody kind of calm down, you know. And usually by the end of the day, I'm a firm believer in ending the day well. So my goal was always to have everybody in a good spot before we went to bed, no matter what had happened during the day. You know, let's let go of it, let's work it out, let's find something we can, you know, either have fun with, or even if it's just ice cream, you know, something to end with a positive note, and everybody, as much as possible, going to bed feeling loved and valued.
Love that.
Yeah.
Did you have any specific habits in the morning that you can speak to, or?
You know, it's interesting. I'm not a morning person, which is not good when you're on a bed and breakfast. So my routines tend to be more in the evening because I'm more of a night owl. But I think one of the things I've tried to change is the thing of reaching for my phone the minute I wake up. You know, I always would do that just to be like, hey, you know, did we get any reservations overnight, or check the emails or check Facebook or whatever. And instantly you're into that whole, you know, rat race of everybody else's life and opinions and news and all of that without kind of welcoming the day. So the one thing that I have done is now when I do wake up, the first few moments of my day, I just lay there and listen to whatever's happening, because lately the birds have been singing amazingly, and I'll just listen to the birds for a few minutes and just kind of say thank you, and, you know, begin the day with just conscious decision to be grateful. No, I understand I'm at a point in my life where that's easier for me to do. I don't have little kids climbing all over me, you know, the minute my eyes are open. I appreciate the stage of life that so many are in, where they don't have a moment to themselves. But, you know, even if you can just take 2 seconds, you know, to just take a breath intentionally and look out the window. If you have a balcony or a porch, step out on it. Just acknowledge and welcome the day, and set that intention that this is going to be a good day. This is, you know, I'm going to bring blessing into this day as many times as I need to. And really you can, like, if it goes all downhill, you can stop it at any point and say, okay, reset. We gotta turn this around.
And that's what you do. You take yourself out of the situation and have to take a few months. I mean, what do you suggest, let's say, if the day is going south at a certain point?
Yeah. Well, I have in the back of my book, I actually have a section of really short blessings, like real quick. because I know a lot of times you have to do this on the fly, and you don't have time for some elaborate, 30-minute meditation, whatever, you're in the middle of life. And so some of the blessings are just super fast, and even just something as simple as just saying out loud, just say, cancel, stop. If everything's spiraling, you're spiraling, your kids are screaming, the dog is barking, whatever, is just literally just stop and say, okay, everything's chaos right now. I would prefer calm. And so just say, whether it's out loud or to yourself, I bless this home with calmness. I bless this home with peace, with cooperation. Speak to your children, whether it's out loud or just in your mind. And just, it shifts something in you, at least. And what's coming out of you is affecting everybody else. So if you can get your own self calmed down, that's going to translate. I've noticed with us is, when things start to get hyper or feisty, I mean, even the dog starts to get crazy and is running around and barking, and he can feel it. And so I think that's instantly a clue, and you can kind of rein it in. One of the other blessings that I love is called flip the coin. And it's just basically, realizing that everything in our lives has an opposite. So, we've got hot and cold, we've got hard and soft, we've got quiet and loud, we've got near and far, all these opposites. And it's the same with our emotions. And so whatever you're feeling at the moment, there is an opposite emotion. And so if you just picture that you have a coin in your hand and you're just going to flip it over. So right now I'm feeling really, really agitated, and I want to feel peaceful and joyful. So you just, I exchange this agitation for peace and joy. And it sounds so simple and so crazy, but just by speaking that, you're sending a message, and your brain is registering that and releasing those hormones and chemicals. And you might have to do it a lot, especially if you have really entrenched, dominant, emotions. It's not going to change overnight, but I just like to think of it as every single time I choose, I'm strengthening that muscle. I'm strengthening that brainwave, and I get to choose. So.
Well, Amy, I'm so glad to have the opportunity to speak with you, and you are just such a beautiful person, honestly.
Thank you. You too.
Oh, thank you. I just want to, let everyone know where they can find you, by the way. Want to, continue the conversation.
Sure. Well, I'm on Facebook and Instagram. I believe Facebook is just Amy J, and then Instagram is Amy J.writer, I think, something like that. And then I also have a website, which is amyj.com, and I've got a lot of information, on there about the book and other things that I'm working on as well. So people can certainly check that out, and I would love to have them join the party.
That's great.
Blessing back.
What did you say?
I want to bring blessing back to our lives, so that it's a normal thing again.
Mm-hmm. I think we can definitely all benefit, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So you've been so kind to share a free gift with our listeners today, and do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. Yes. If you go to amyj.com, right on the homepage, I have actually two freebies. One is you can get a free chapter of the book, so you can start reading it. And then the other is actually a home blessing planner. And that would be for if you want to do a more formal blessing. Sometimes when people move into a home, they want to kind of reset it and claim it as theirs. Or you can do it in your own, your current home if you just feel like you need a fresh start, kind of, just turn a page. Some people do it once a year, just to kind of reset things and bring, intentionally bring an invitation of the blessings that you want into your home. Something you can do on your own, or you can make it into an event and have a couple of friends over. If you are a spiritual person, you want to involve a pastor or a priest, you can do that as well. But this home blessing planner just kind of helps you pull all the details together of when you're going to do it, what kind of blessings you want, what kind of unspoken blessings you're going to use to create the tone you want. And it stands alone. I mean, it will probably make more sense if you've read the book, but it does stand alone as well, as a way to create a fresh start for your home. But I do want to say two quick things. You don't have to be a spiritual or religious person. I believe blessing is just a gift, the sun rises and shines on us all, and the rain falls and waters our gardens. It is the same thing with blessing. These blessings already exist. Joy and love and peace and all of these things are in existence, and they are something that are free to all of us. So you can invite them into your home, whether you believe in any higher power or not. And then the second thing I would say is that blessing doesn't have to be fancy. It can literally be a sticky note that you put on your bathroom mirror, and you just pick a blessing that you want for that week, and you stick that on there, and you look at it every morning through your bleary eyes, and that starts your day off focusing on that. So I don't want people who might be feeling overwhelmed already with their lives to feel like they have to add another thing. It can be very simple. It's very personal. It can be customized to your personality, to your energy level. It doesn't have to be a big ceremony or take a lot of time.
That's a great point. That's a great point. Well, I definitely enjoyed this conversation. I hope you all did as well. And I just really, truly want to encourage you to join Amy's community. I do want to point out her last name is spelled J-A-E, so it's a little bit different. I want to make sure you guys got that. And I'll invite you guys to take a moment and jot down the top 2-3 takeaways that you got from this discussion. I know I have a lot to jot down myself. And be sure to join me tomorrow for our next expert discussion, and I look forward to seeing you then.